We are recording, so please start.
Okay, the time is 6:05 p.m. on September 17th, 2020, and I would like to call this meeting the Growth Management Oversight Commission to order. In the interest of public safety, health and safety, and pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N2920, members of the Growth Management Oversight Commission and staff are participating in this meeting by teleconference. In accordance with the executive order, the public may view this meeting online, but not in council chambers. The city has launched a virtual commenting portal, e-comment, that allows residents to comment and participate in the meeting from their homes. You'll find the link to e-comment at www.chulavistaca.gov/boards. Your comments must be received before I call for the closing comment period in order to be considered. After the comment period is closed, I will announce a brief pause to allow commissioners time to read any comments that have been received. If you have any difficulties or need assistance during the meeting, please contact Secretary Claudia Ramos at cramos@chulavistaca.gov. Would the Secretary please call the roll call?
Yes, Chair Hooker.
Here.
Commissioner Alatorre, we're trying to get him on. Commissioner Caudillo.
Present.
Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Lengyel.
Here.
Commissioner Strong. And Commissioner Torres. And we are missing Alatorre and Harris and Strong.
Okay, the first order of business is consent calendar and approval of the minutes. Do any commissioners have comments? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Is Commissioner Lengyel move to approve the minutes?
Is there a second?
I guess you guys can't hear me on my phone. I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Legal to motion by Commissioner Legal and a second by Commissioner Torres. Would the Secretary please conduct a roll call?
Okay, so Commissioner Hooker, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Caudillo? Commissioner Caudillo, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Lengyel approved the motion and Torres seconded. So we have four votes to pass.
Okay, the September 3rd, 2020 minutes have passed on a vote of 4-0. The public comments is the section on the agenda for members of the public to address the board on items that are not listed on the agenda. I will now call for a 2-minute pause to allow public to submit any final public comments. Commissioners, as a reminder, please refresh the view on your screen to ensure we have new comments will appear. The commenting period for public comments is now closed. I did not see any public comments.
And I did not receive any comments via email.
Okay. The next item of the agenda is the presentation of economic development by Assistant Manager Eric Crockett.
Thank you. How are you tonight? I don't think I've ever been invited to the GC, so I really appreciate the invitation. Tonight I'm going to be joined with my colleague Miranda Evans. So I'm just going to kick us off with a kind of brief introduction of economic development and what my role has been since I took over this job in 2015. So it's been about 6 years. Upon taking over this role in February of 2015, the council wanted to understand what was the role of economic development, what was our work program, and there wasn't ever one really presented to them. So they directed me to come back in 90 days with a work program. We have provided an annual work program of our activities and our completion of those activities on an annual basis in 2015. Only 2 times we have not done an annual work program is one when I was down to only myself as staff. And the second time is this year with COVID because of the impacts of COVID to our business community. We are keeping our work program to a very short 90-day to 180-day window so we can be nimble as we respond to the issues that our business are having. So tonight, I don't know who needs to mute. Someone maybe needs to mute, or I hear shuffling of papers. So tonight we're going to go over my department overview and my metrics. Miranda is going to walk you through our work plan, as well as our economic recovery plan that we adopted back in May of this year. Next slide. This is my small staff, both in small stature of the picture. This is a pre-COVID picture from our drone. Next. Economic Development Department is structured. We don't only do economic development. Economic development is really made up of myself, Miranda, and Kevin. So there's 3 really real people that focus their primary efforts on economic development. But I also oversee the real property management of the city. So that's all small cell, macro cell, SDG&E franchise agreement, Republic franchise agreement, all lease agreements that we have with parties on property that's not programmed by the city, and participate in all real estate negotiations with the city, as well as I oversee the Office of Sustainability. Office of Sustainability is the lead on our smart cities efforts, our climate action plan, and our conservation efforts with Republic Services to kind of divert waste from the landfill. Just quickly, the goal that's identified in the general plan, which our goal is, which is, a diverse economy. We promote healthy and sustainable communities for everyone. I love the goal. I was not part of this goal in developing it in 2005 with the general plan, but it really is kind of the ethos that drives our work. So because the GMOC has been traditionally a measurement body to measure success of how we're managing the delivery of facilities commensurate with the development, I thought it'd be important for you to understand kind of how we measure ourselves, to understand how the economy, how our business is doing. And so these are some of the metrics we do. So we get quarterly reports on lease rates, vacancy rates, absorption rates from our local broker community, which tells us how much property do we have available, how fast is it being gobbled up, and then when people are looking to expand, do we even have inventory with which to put them in? We also want to make sure that we're business friendly, so we work very closely with development services to ensure that tenant improvement projects are on time, but also we also look at what is the value of those improvements, because that is a key indicator of how much investment is coming into our community to go into product that already exists. It's not about new buildings, but it's about how are these existing buildings being reutilized. And then at the end of every year, we come back to the council and to the public, and we talk about how much of our work plan did we complete. I think when Miranda goes through the work plan, at least every time I go through my work plan, I'm always very tired because there's a lot of information in there and there's a lot of efforts. And if I can get to a 60 to 70% completion rating, I feel that to be of success. And then we also keep our finger on the pulse of the developments happening in Village 3, Village 2, the Sudbury project on Main Street. We participate actively in the university project and the Bayfront project. And that's really important so we can kind of know what kind of square footage is coming online, what is their vision for that square footage, so that when I have businesses that are local that are looking to expand or business coming to our community, I can let them know if there's an opportunity for them in any of these locations. Next slide.
Had a delay, sorry.
No worries. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Miranda Evans, who's my colleague in economic development, to walk you through the work plan. And at the end of that, we'll be ready for any questions you have and or suggestions. So with that, Miranda, take it away.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be here with you all virtually tonight. I am going to just dive right in and start with an overview of our work plan. I have mine right here printed, and then at the end, I'll share with you, if you're curious, how you can access your copy online. So our work plan is really designed to create sustainable economic development for the city. And we structured that around 4 core tenets. So our first is expanding our business support, making sure we're doing everything we can to support the core of our businesses in Chula Vista, which really 95% of our local businesses, the heartbeat and the backbone and the core of our economy are small businesses that have 10 or fewer employees. So making sure we can do everything we can to support them. Improving collaboration and outreach, making sure that applies to our business community and also our ecosystem partners, whether they're our local partners, regional partners, binational partners, national and even internationals, we'll talk about a little bit later. The third core tenet of our plan is strengthening economic vitality. And the fourth is driving innovation and sustainability, and really just making sure that we're fostering a culture of innovation within City Hall that can permeate outside into the community and drive investment. And so all of these core tenets work together to support our triple bottom line, our people, our planet, and our prosperity, which really nicely ties in all of the divisions in our department, which Eric mentioned, and I'll go through and highlight those. So within our work plan, Eric mentioned he gets tired thinking about it. And it's true, we have 49 tasks within this work plan for this fiscal year. And so of those 49 tasks, 65% of those were completed. Of course, as we're nearing the finish line of fiscal year 20, something we never anticipated and something certainly not in this plan was spending 90, 95%, 100% at times of our staff time devoted to COVID response and recovery. So I'll talk about those efforts at the end of this presentation. But within each of those 49 items within the work plan, we have our key performance indicators, or KPIs, and also a timeline in which we want to accomplish those tasks. So any that weren't accomplished in this fiscal year, we're continuing those efforts as we have the bandwidth during our COVID response this fiscal year. So the first division I'll highlight is our real property management division. And really, this is a snapshot at the end of fiscal year 19. So this is in the rears, but a lot of this still holds true. So throughout the city, we actually have 28,000 acres of city-owned space. Keep in mind that includes city right-of-way, so sidewalks, and also our city-owned open space. And pictured up there in the top left is our beautiful Chula Vista Golf Course, which, if you didn't know, is owned by the city. That is 120 acres of our 28,000 acres. And brings in revenue for the city annually. Also within our city's real estate portfolio, we have 25,000 square feet of revenue generating city-owned space. So that is market rate rent that the city is able to collect. And as Eric mentioned earlier, real property management manages those negotiations and license agreements as they relate to our macro and micro cell sites. In recent years, we've continued to see an uptick, especially in the number of our micro cell sites that are coming online within the city. So we had 86 at the end of fiscal year 19, and now we are approaching 100. So real property management, some of the projects they were focused on and actually will continue to be focused on include taking a look at the golf course and making sure we are utilizing that asset to the best of our abilities, seeing if perhaps we could use to energize the site with some other un-golf related activities. So that's something that continues. And also negotiating and assisting all of those master licensing agreement for the micro and macro cell sites. Those are a few of the things that they are involved in. Moving into our economic development division that I have a privilege to be a part of. These are some of those metrics that Eric talked about. And again, this is a snapshot of 2019. So it does look a little bit different now, of course, in the current COVID landscape that we see ourselves in. But something to really tout is across Chula Vista, we have a very, very low vacancy rate in our retail space, industrial space, and our office space. I'll talk a little bit later. We have a unique situation of adding about 500,000 square feet of new retail and commercial space to the city in Village 2, 3, and also on Main Street, the Sudbury project that Eric mentioned. So it's great to see those spaces continuing to come online. Something I'm really proud of is our 180% increase in expedited permits. So those are all of the TIs that come in through development services. And thank you so much to our development services partners who are here tonight. It's really kind of a testament to them keeping to those deadlines. We try and make sure at least 90% of those are on time, if not expedited. So we've seen a huge increase in that. We also look at the value that's added to the community. So at the end of fiscal year 19, we actually had $120 million of value that was added to the local economy from new non-residential buildings. As I mentioned earlier, 95% of our small businesses have 10 or fewer employees, and that really is the backbone of our local economy. Also, as a snapshot of 2019, at that time, we were continuing a 9-year trend of a steady decrease in our local unemployment rate. Same held true regionally and maybe even nationally. And that's not been interrupted as a result of COVID. Continuing to track those metrics. So taking a look at some of our work plan efforts for expanding business support is really kind of honing in on making sure that 90% of those tenant improvements are processed on time and working very closely with our counterparts in development services to make that possible. We had begun a business resources guide, but that actually ended up being replaced by our COVID-19 recovery guide, which I'll share a little bit later. We're also continuing to work on updating our economic development webpage to make a more user-friendly, business-friendly, one-stop shop of all of our resources, just to make them very navigable and accessible for our users. On strengthening economic vitality, this is really the fun slide. These are all of those economic catalyst projects that I'm sure all of you are familiar with that are going on in the community. So with Millennia, it's really incredible. It's a new city within a city, essentially. And so we're not only working with our clients who are interested in filling those retail and office shells that are available as a result of the construction in Millennia, but we're also still working with Chestnut Properties on their Millennia office development. And so that is going to be a 3-phase project. And the first one is going to be the Think Campus, and that is over 300,000 square feet. And so we hope to help get that out of the ground, and that's been an area of focus. Chula Vista Bayfront and our Gaylord Hotel and Convention Center, that has been an effort that has not been slowed or stagnated at all by COVID. Those efforts are continuing forward. Right now, behind the scenes, the city's working closely with the Port of San Diego on a revenue sharing agreement, and hoping and just really working to push forward to still break ground in 2021. And that's going to be 1,600 room Gaylord Hotel and Convention Center, which will take about 3 years to construct, and which we hope by that time, we're very optimistic, there will be conventions again. People will be traveling again. It'll be a wonderful time to come visit Chula Vista. Our University Innovation District, those efforts are moving forward. Right now, we're in the weeds of starting an overlay zone project we've been working closely with Development Services on. So really, that's just going to allow ultimate flexibility to our eventual university user to allow them to locate wherever they want on the university site. Because we've been hearing a lot, they'll probably want to be closer to the west of the city-owned site along the 125. So we're just trying to make things, remove barriers to entry for them and be as flexible as we can. Third Avenue Village has continued to enjoy a lot of revitalization through the last couple of years. In the last year and a half or so, we've had about 25 different projects take place. So we're continuing to see that reinvestment out there. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, we have about 500,000 square feet of new industrial and commercial space. I think I misspoke earlier and said retail, so I'm correcting myself now. It's industrial and commercial space. So we're going to see that in Village 2 and 3 on the east, and also on Main Street, that Sudbury property. So taking a look at driving innovation and sustainability, we're continuing our work on implementing the Smart City Strategic Action Plan. And part of that is continuing our work on the UAS test site. So really the drone testing center, and we're hoping that access to that we hold open for businesses will help be an incentive for them to locate or to expand in Chula Vista and to add more jobs to our local economy. Okay, switching gears now to the Office of Sustainability. We're making good time. So the Office of Sustainability, these are some of their key metrics that they look at. It looks a little different division to division. So these are the things they measure. They have 89 million pounds of recyclables diverted from their landfill. 89 million pounds, that is crazy. I should convert that to tons, but I think pounds is more impressive. 20,000 light bulbs were replaced in the LED retrofit project that they championed, creating a more sustainable city facilities. 123 electric vehicle chargers were added to city facilities, and that was funded through SDG&E's Power Your Drive program. And that was actually the largest install of chargers for any of SDG&E's territories. And then we saw an addition of 11,000 solar panels on city facilities, a number that we're very proud just continues to climb to create a more sustainable city, and we're able to lead by example on that front. So some of the things the Office of the Conservation Division within the Office of Sustainability worked on was really focusing on updating the 2017 Climate Action Plan. In the good old days of 2019 and early 2020, when we were able to be in person together and not socially distanced, they held a number of workshops, and I know that the Climate Change Working Group was also kind of noodling over some updates to the Climate Action Plan, which they're continuing. At the time, we had identified the goal of completing the Community Choice Aggregation Feasibility Study, which was completed. Community Choice Aggregation, CCA, or Community Choice Energy, CCE, was approved by the City Council as a way for Chula Vista to start to take control of its energy destiny. And so right now is actually a really exciting time. I'm sure you've all spoken about it. It's actually creating a joint powers authority, a JPA, with some of our neighbors in the region. So we have Chula Vista, of course, La Mesa, Imperial Beach, and Encinitas, all embarking on this JPA journey for CCA. And then taking a look at environmental services. So they're really focused on pollution prevention and waste management across the city. One of those key efforts is creating a zero waste plan. And this is a lot of work. This is a big lift in and of itself. So what the zero waste plan will do, it's going to be a roadmap for the city to follow to a 90% diversion rate from the landfills. And that needs to be done by 2035. There's quite a bit of work to do. And lastly, I'll highlight the organic waste reduction goals. So that's actually an unfunded mandate from SB 1383. And that's going to allow us to create an organics program by 2032. And so to close it out for Office of Sustainability is the Smart City Initiative. We have a lot of really exciting efforts in this wheelhouse. including our citywide open data program. And that's really a cool effort championed by volunteers on a cross-departmental team, all working together to make sure everybody's doing what they can to make data more accessible and more transparent for the public that we serve. So there's going to be some really exciting dashboards rolled out. Excuse me. I know PD has theirs rolled out already, and you'll continue to see more of that. Also, the Digital Equity and Inclusion Action Plan that was completed earlier this year and adopted by the City Council. And something to highlight from that was just adopting strategies to start to address the digital divide in Chula Vista. Something that's really only become greater and more defined as a result of COVID-19. More people working from home, homeschool, you know the drill. So something as part of that earlier this year, we were able to actually provide 2,000 Wi-Fi hotspots to the community. And that was an example of a strategy within that plan. And lastly, I'll highlight on here our Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative. And so every year, Bloomberg Philanthropies and Harvard select 40 cities from around the entire world. And Chula Vista had the privilege of being selected. And this program has provided such incredible value to our city. And I'll share an example of one of those specific projects with you in a little bit. Okay, and so inclusive economic development. This has been a strategic focus area in the region for a few years, and Eric has really done a great job of championing this effort. While San Diego Regional EDC has been a champion and they've addressed their own goals for just really taking a look at how we can start to build a more inclusive economy. They're looking at targeting ways to build a strong talent pipeline by adding thousands of jobs by 2035, doing their part more to equip small businesses to compete, and looking at ways to address the housing and affordability crisis. Because we all know the cost of living in San Diego County is just astronomical. It's the third most expensive city in the nation, and costs such as housing, childcare, for many people, childcare is more expensive than their housing, transportation, and access to higher education. These costs can actually be barriers to success in the workforce for many people. And so San Diego Regional EDC has been looking at ways to address that, which is wonderful. But as a city, we wanted to better understand what our role is as a municipality and the things that we can do locally to promote a more inclusive and equitable economy for Chula Vista. But we didn't really know how to go about that. It's a huge goal. So we embarked on this at the end of last fiscal year. And we're just brainstorming ways we could start to tackle this. And luckily, with our Bloomberg Harvard partnership that I mentioned earlier, we had the opportunity to work with a Harvard fellow who really helped us advance this work over the summer, over the course of 11 weeks. And the great thing about access to Harvard is they were able to do a meta-analysis of all of the research out there on inclusive economic development. And this is a new and emerging topic, so it can be kind of difficult to get your head around. And so they did a meta-analysis, and out of that, they identified these 5 different spokes of inclusive economic development. So from that, we took a look inward to see how we're doing as a city. And we administered some surveys at the beginning of COVID, beginning of summer. And we had about 600 business response surveys and 800 community surveys. And so the results of those surveys were really, they really confirmed a lot of the hypotheses that we had about this current state of our economy, the direction we want to go, and help to inform some of our policy directions going forward. So based on the survey, we have a few takeaways on how Chula Vista is doing. And looking at the state of Chula Vista, we see the economy is dynamic. The average Chula Vista resident is increasingly foreign-born, younger, and wealthier. Within our business ecosystem, It's relatively stagnant, so it kind of stays the same just in terms of the number of businesses that we have. And a lot of that is really attributed to those low vacancy rates I mentioned earlier. A lot of our businesses are local, women, and minority owned. And what we see in East Chula Vista is that it tends to be a little less small business friendly. It's mostly those larger credit tenants who are welcomed with open arms, and rents are a lot higher as well. So those can be some barriers to entry for more of the small businesses on East Chula Vista. Let's see. I'll cover shared. I won't go into all of this because this is literally a presentation in and of itself. For any of those who are interested, we presented this to the City Council on August 25th. So when you go into our website, you can actually watch the video of all of this. So I'm just going to share some of the key highlights, which includes shared. So looking at the state of our shared economy, a hypothesis we had, which was confirmed through a result of the surveys and working with our Harvard fellow, is that wealth really is more concentrated with our white population as opposed to our Latinx population. And that's a true problem. Our population, we're a minority majority community. So we have 58% of our community is Hispanic. So we need to see wealth moved and concentrated into their hands. Also, as you all know, we have the neighborhood wealth divide, east versus west. And as a result of a high percentage of people commuting out of Chula Vista each day, which it'll be really interesting how that plays out in the current COVID state with a lot of people working from home, and after, if they're allowed to continue that behavior, if those people who leave the community every day can instead invest their money within Chula Vista. And a key point to highlight, for those who actually do work in Chula Vista, only I'd say about, I think the finding was 60% of those do not make a living wage. And that really needs to be, that's the floor, that's the baseline of what we're striving for, which is really $19.50 an hour is a living wage. And also making sure that they have healthcare benefits. So those are the two I'll go into depth on right now. And these really inform some opportunities for change for us. And this is the first step. So we're taking some baby steps towards taking control of what we can do as a city to be more inclusive and more equitable. So one of the first things we're going to start doing is kind of reimagining our business license process and just making sure we're doing a very intentional job of the data we're collecting during the business license process, and making sure we know who our women business enterprises are, our veteran business enterprises are, our minority business enterprises are, so that we can get them the resources they need to be successful and connect them with the professional networks that they'd like. And we're also going to do our very best to lead by example. So as a city, we have a lot of purchasing power, and we want to start doing a better job of circulating that money and leaving that power in our local economy to our local small businesses and circulating that within Chula Vista so that the wealth stays in our community. So those are some of the key highlights. Like I said, I wish I could go into more, but it really is a presentation in and of itself. There's a lot more to come on this. This is really just our first baby step. And it's something both Eric and I are very, very passionate about, and we're excited to continue working on. So with that, I will conclude by just sharing a little bit about our 180-day COVID-19 recovery plan. And really, this has been serving as our roadmap right now in place of our traditional work plan we would have done for this fiscal year. But as we were approaching the finish line of last fiscal year, we were confronted with the harsh reality of responding to COVID. So similar to our work plan, our recovery plan is structured around 5 core tenets. And so that includes financial assistance, getting money and resources in the hands of our business community, technical assistance, providing that technical expertise that our business community needs to navigate what really is a never-ending changing list of regulations, places to access resources, just giving them that assistance they need. Third, marketing and promotion, making sure we're promoting our local businesses, shopping local, all working together to support our local economy. Fourth was really part of taking a look inward at what our city policies were, so that we can cut some red tape. That's why I put the scissors there. Cutting red tape, doing everything we can to instill business-friendly policies within the city, because this is a hard enough time for our businesses as it is, and we're doing everything we can to make it a little easier for them. And then finally, what I won't spend a lot of time on is just really continuing those critical economic development catalyst projects. Like I mentioned earlier, Millennia is still moving forward. We're going to get phase 1 out of the ground. Bayfront still moving forward, going to break ground 2021, working behind the scenes with the port on those details. And the university, doing our part to move that project forward, so that we have some more equitable access to higher education that will later help improve the workforce as well. So I won't go too into depth on this, but just want to highlight really what is our flagship project for our financial assistance, a program I'm really proud to have worked on and helped design from the ground up, is our direct financial assistance program. It's our Chula Vista Cares small business grant program. This was funded by $1.5 million of the CARES Act funding that we received through our county allocation. So with that funding, we were actually able to provide checks and give 2 months of rent directly to a small business in our community. And we were able to do 248 grant awards. So this is free money to our business community. There's no interest rate. This is not a loan. This is literally a check they're getting in the mail that's going to help them keep their doors open and their lights on for 2 more months. Our technical assistance program, really this is working with our local partners to make sure that we're providing up-to-date technical assistance to businesses. So it's been a lot of translating what we hear from the different levels of government. As you all know, things are just rapidly changing with COVID. We hear something from the federal government one day, we hear something from Governor Newsom another day, making sure these rules are understandable and navigable as possible for our business community, and providing one-on-one service and advice to our business community. Part of this also were the economic recovery surveys I mentioned earlier that informed our inclusive economic development work, because that told us, that didn't let us know what businesses really need. And what they really needed was just money, keep the doors open, keep the lights on. They've depleted their reserves, so we were just trying to get money in their hands. And then we're also, we started industry working groups. So South County EDC, TAVA on 3rd Avenue and our chamber, we encouraged them to get working groups going with different industries so that they were communicating directly to those businesses and seeing what their needs were. For marketing and promotion, we are really excited to be embarking on a new marketing campaign. This will be a spin-off iteration of our This is Chula campaign that I hope a lot of you are familiar with. And this will just kind of be community-wide, community pride, business support, and marketing campaign to help encourage the importance of shopping locally. Of course, you could get something on Amazon, but when you know who it's benefiting and the story behind it and how you're helping to support their business and helping them to be successful, I hope that that would encourage people to shop locally and keep their money in Chula Vista. Here's the red slide. We're cutting red tape, doing everything we can to make things easier for businesses in this very, very difficult time. Part of that, we're continuing to prioritize tenant improvement permits. Same as I mentioned earlier, even in the COVID-19 landscape, we're still seeing TIs coming in. It's kind of good behind the scene times and some downtime for people to get those processed, and that's still happening, which is great. We've also had free parking on 3rd Avenue and commercial corridors throughout the entire city. And I believe that goes through the end of September. And that really is to incentivize people to come down, park easily, get your food to go, dine outside, whatever it may be, just to make it easier for people to come visit our local businesses. And lastly, we've been coordinating with all of the different utility providers just to make sure that they're providing payment plans during these tough times to commercial tenants. so that nobody has to worry if their lights aren't going to be on or their water's not going to be on. And this is a lot of what I covered earlier. This included our work of the Harvard Summer Fellow, who was with us for 11 weeks. Bayfront's moving forward, Millennia is moving forward, University Innovation District still moving forward, and that Third Avenue revitalization, we're still seeing that happening, including some of the businesses moving outside, which we help to facilitate. And also stay tuned for the opening. El Cruce at 241 Third Avenue is still pushing forward in the process, and they're still getting ready to open their doors, even during everything that's going on with COVID. Okay, so I made it to the end. And just to share, if you're curious on the work plan or the recovery plan, we made them very, very easy to find on our website. And within the COVID plan, we actually went through and did a comprehensive update in a few weeks ago. And so you'll see a status update of what each of the items are. So you just have to go to chulavistaca.gov/businesses, and you'll see each of the plans there. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Okay, thank you, Eric and Miranda. Eric, do you have anything else?
No, I hope the theme comes true, is that what we try to do is be incredibly open and honest about what we're doing in every step of everything we're doing, so that everybody knows exactly what we're doing. We always look for feedback. We always look for impact or input from others to improve how we provide services to the community and what we can do for our local business community. So I hope that came across. That's our ethos. We are not the experts. We don't run businesses, but we're here to do everything we can to support them. And so we really appreciate the opportunity to be able to present this to you. And I really got to thank Miranda for her presentation. So we're open for questions or feedback.
Okay, thank you. Before I open up to the commissioners, I have one question. So I noticed here in the Target Mall off Otay Lakes, East Lake Parkway, the charging station, the Tesla charging station. Who maintains that for charging? How does that work?
Those are privately maintained. So the ones that my staff either oversees the implementation or the maintenance of, or you'll find them all in city facilities. When they fall in a private facility, those were permitted and run by private corporations like Tesla.
Okay. All right. That was my question. Do any commissioner have any clarifying questions before we go to public comments?
This is Commissioner Torres.
Maybe if you're not speaking, mute yourself.
What was that?
A lot of feedback. If you're not currently speaking, could you please mute yourself? I'll do the same.
Hey, Commissioner Torres.
That was Commissioner Torres on his phone, and I think he is off now.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Are you back on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
That's better.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, but I've been having a lot of problems with my computer, and so I've been having to go back and forth with my phone and my computer. Okay, a couple quick things. One is I've gone through your ED work plan and your COVID plan, so thank you. What I would like is for the presentation that was given by Miranda to be given to all the commissioners as soon as possible, so that we can go through it, as opposed to trying to go to the city council meetings and try to download it. So I appreciate that courtesy. The second thing is that in the San Diego Union Tribune, there was a story about a survey that was done about how, as a result of the COVID, of the coronavirus pandemic, up to 60% of all small businesses in Chula Vista may close its doors permanently. So I'd like for the commissioners to get a copy of that survey as well, so that we can look at it. Now, my main question is this: is the reason why you're giving this presentation, and I want to thank Eric and Miranda for doing this, and I really appreciate the time and the effort, is that I'm not just a GMOC commissioner, but I'm also a planning commissioner. And the Planning Commission has been advocating that economic development be included as a new threshold in the GMOC ordinance with all of the proper threshold and performance metrics and whatnot. So my question is this: I know there's going to be a presentation later on to the Planning Commission that we're going to be talking about later. So maybe I should reserve this question for later, but I wanted to know the process by which staff is going to prepare a draft of those thresholds and performance metrics, so that way it can be presented to the Planning Commission and to the GMOC. How is that going to take place? Because the Planning Commission is, for all intents and purposes, and this is just my perception, is there's three divisions in ED. You know, you've gone over economic development, office of sustainability, and real property management. It's the economic development component that the Planning Commission is really has a keen interest in, which is part of the presentation that Miranda gave us tonight. So I wanted to know, is from a process point of view, is staff, is Eric and Miranda going to work with Kim and Kimberly to develop the thresholds and performance metrics to be presented to the Planning Commission and GMOC? How's that going to evolve?
If I could answer that, Commissioner, yes, that's exactly what's going to happen. Our team will work with Eric and his team to come up with what we think are the most important things to measure and that can be measured on an annual basis, and then present it to you. GMOC will be the decision maker on what topics will be included. I think then ultimately gets presented to the Plan Commission as a recommendation, and then City Council. And that's the way we'll do all of these topics. Is I will be working with the different staff folks. I asked Eric and Miranda to come today to give you an overview and a flavor of that department. What we've been looking at is having one topic for economic development, and then one for smart city, and then a separate one for sustainability. And those three topics happen to be all under Eric's umbrella.
So one topic for economic development and the related performance measures, is that what you're saying?
One separate topic for economic development. And then underneath that, we'll have multiple performance measures.
Okay, that sounds better. Yeah, because the presentation that was given by Miranda, her PowerPoint, had some very thought-provoking issues that were discussed. And I know that survey, even though I haven't seen that survey, I know is also going to have some very thought-provoking things to discuss as well. So that's why I'd like to have those two documents provided to the GMOC and also to the Planning Commission when this issue comes before it, so that way they have an opportunity to preview those documents, so that way they have a more informed discussion with staff when the Planning Commission gets an opportunity to opine as well. Okay?
Okay, I think we had Commissioner Carrillo for question next.
Yes, I do. Thank you for the presentation tonight. Very, very informative. I have a couple questions actually on two different topics that you discussed tonight. My first one is, I thought you mentioned about the CARES Act with the grants for small businesses, correct?
Yep. But yes, we administered that. So which question?
Okay, so my question is how and who is making those determinations on which businesses are going to receive the grants, and what are the qualifications?
So that's, can you hear?
Applying the funds into different industries, and how are they determining how much money the qualifiers will receive? I know you mentioned something about 2 months rent, but one business might be $5,000 a month and the other may be $30,000 a month. So how and when are all these determinations, and by who are these being made?
So that's a great question. So I'll just hit it really quickly. Like, what we've seen is the hardest hit businesses are the ones that keep having to be closed. We are now probably on the precipice of having to close businesses again next week by the state order. So we went to the city council and said, these small businesses, and they are your massage, barbershops, your restaurants, your retail, your nail salons. I mean, these little small businesses that have almost no cash reserves are the ones that have had to be closed the longest. And so we kind of wanted to get to the people that had been forced to close and be interrupted. But we also wanted to spread some of the money around as much as we could. The best thing I could have done was provide them 6 months of rent, but I didn't have that money. If I had 6 months of rent, I would have been able to help, maybe 80 businesses. So what we said is like, let's give them a little bit of a hand up, and we'll cover 2 months of rent. So what they had to do to qualify, they had to have a business license in the city, a lease agreement, and submit me a W-9. So if they had and have 10 or fewer employees. So if they met those 3 criteria, then they were eligible. And as long as they were forced to close. So the county had a list of like 14 pages long of the businesses that could operate. Those businesses that could not operate and were forced to close were eligible to receive funding. And so we are currently we received 480 applications. We qualified, give or take, 340 of those. We have funded 250 of those, and we're still trying to remediate the remaining 80 businesses or so to get us their lease agreement and their W-9. So we just thought that the hardest hit needed the most amount of money, and I'm really scared. So when you think about the 600 business surveys that you brought up about the six out of 10, or I think Jerome brought it up, the 6 out of 10 businesses that are going to fail, that's coming from these are self-reported from the businesses that applied for this grant, that they do not feel that they can continue under the current atmosphere of reduced occupancy and having to close on, off. And so those are the people we want. If we can't we got to get more money in their hands, or they're going to fail, and we're going to have some serious issues. So that was what it was. City council approved our guidelines, and then we've been implementing them over the last 5 to 6 weeks.
Okay, so the follow-up question on that, and that's great. I think that's great on how we're able to help our small businesses. So my follow-up question is, how much of the funds are left in that fund, if you can disclose that? That's what.
Yeah, I can. So we've got about 1.2 million out the door. I got about 300,000 left of the 1.5 they allocated, and that should fund everybody that we determined to be eligible based on the criteria that was adopted by the council. So we should be able to fund 100% of the businesses that applied that we determined to be eligible with the money that we have.
Okay, and then how this brought to small business owners' attention? I mean, how did businesses know that this was available to them? What kind of marketing did we do on this to notify people that this
That's a great question. I'm going to let Miranda do that because there was a significant amount of outreach.
Okay.
We did. Yes, absolutely. We knew it would be so important. So we had a really robust outreach plan for it. We sent thousands of emails. Everybody who has a business license, which is a requirement of the grant to have a business license, all of them got a personal email invitation to apply for the grant. We did plenty of posts on social media. We also partnered with our partners in Spanish media to make sure we're doing radio ads, which is a really efficient way to reach a lot of our business owners and our residents. So we had our ads on Spanish media. We also notified all of our regional partners. So whether it's a chamber, even our regional EDC, our South County EDC, TAVA, the chamber, everybody was notified. We had it on the city website. We did a city news release. We did a city press release. We held a press conference on 3rd Avenue with the mayor as a champion of that in English and in Spanish for TV media. We had a lot of great coverage on that. And I think that kind of summarizes the main efforts. And personally reached out, myself, Eric, and my counterpart, Kevin, personally reached out to the hundreds of businesses that we have relationships with and know, and personally invited them to apply.
Oh,
And,
okay,
I'd say one of the other parts of the process that we learned, we participated like with City of San Diego and others in their grant programs. We're also a partner with City of San Diego in their loan program. And what we learned is that when you create a grant or a loan program and you open it up and you make it like first come, first serve, then the smallest businesses are left out because they don't have the capacity to sit there and wait to apply. And so what we did, we said, it's not first come, first serve. Everybody apply over this 1 week period of time. And as long as you meet this criteria, we were going to do a lottery. And in order to do the funding, we just happened to luck out that the number of people who qualified came really close to the amount of money that we had. So that was the other thing, because what we learned from the small businesses, I mean, they are working 12, 14 hours a day to survive. They don't have the attorneys waiting or the consultants waiting that can kind of go get them their PPP money. A lot of them lost out of a lot of these funding opportunities because they just didn't have the capacity to sit there and fill out applications online.
right. Okay, so I'm sure there was measures in there too to weed out potential fraud and so forth, right? I mean, you don't have to get into details.
No, you should see the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is quite impressive about validating the participants.
Okay. And then I have one other question. This is on another subtopic. So my last question is, you had mentioned in your presentation about how you're making the city more business friendly and you're expediting permits and stuff like that. Can you give me an example of each of what we've done to make the city more business friendly? I know you had some things listed, but can you just give me an example of one of the problems that we've had by not being business friendly that now we are doing to make it business friendly? Can you give me an example?
Yeah, I'll give you a prime example. I mean, I'll take the fast food, the McDonald's. How is McDonald's successful? The first thing is to get your money and put it in the register before they give you a hamburger, right? The more they do that, the more successful they are. So what we look at is businesses that want to be in our community, we need to make them really feel special and the number one thing they need is to make sure they get their permits on time. The number one thing, it's not about money, it's not about anything. It's like they need certainty and turnaround times. And so we worked with the development services time to come up with the goal. The goal would be, obviously, we'd love to have 100% of the time, but get out 9 out of 10 permits to get through the process on time, so that when we have people coming to the counter and saying, hey, I want to open up my sandwich shop, we can tell them it'll take 3 weeks for the first turnaround time, 2 weeks for the second turnaround time, and if you absolutely need a third turnaround time, it'll be 2 more weeks. So the entire time the city has to look at these complicated tenant improvements is less than a month and a half in order for us to review these and permit these projects. Obviously, there's some working time on them. So that's why it's so important for us to continue to monitor that. Prior to that, before a few years ago, we weren't measuring that. And once we started measuring that, and if we got any hiccups, we reached out to development services and said, okay, we're missing some of their turnaround times. And so what they did, they immediately went outside. They got some outside consultant services to ensure that tenant improvements. So there was probably a period of 18 months where they didn't have the capacity internal because we had a reduction of staff and some people retired. But they made sure that the outside consultant prioritized the work and that we could make it on time. And so that's been a continuing theme probably for the last 4 years. And that's why it's so important to partner with development services to understand the importance of keeping these permits on time. So that's probably my first example, my best example, and the most impactful to our businesses.
So you're saying that we're sending it out to a third party to expedite?
We did before that. Now we have staff in house that are maintaining their. But you know, we get these ebbs and flows of development, right? And so it's really hard to manage that always with internal staff. And so development services has a list of consultants that are on call. So when their workload exceeds their capacity, they can pull those people in. And so that's been really kind of a game changer for us in our business community.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking this is because I've talked to many people over the years since I've been in Chula Vista, 25 years, and it always seemed like it was the same story of the permits. You know, for example, I had a few neighbors like within a year apart came and had mentioned to me that the process was taking so long at the city, and they would call down there, and even on two occasions, things were misplaced. Documents, they couldn't find them, and that was part of the reason for the delay. So expediting this has nothing to do with streamlining the process. You're saying it has to do with staff, not having to do with like a system in place to monitor these documents, to know where they are at all times. Nothing like that's been done.
No, they have all that. I mean, I used to formerly be the assistant director of development services. We have all those processes in place. Now, is it perfect? Is anybody perfect? No, there will be mistakes that happen. But you know, what I to development services credit, every time we get a complaint, what's nice is they have citizen access online, so we're able to download that report. So I get like the businesses to say, "Oh my God, it's taking so long. Why is it taking so long to get this permit?" I'm able to pull that down and say, the city has turned it around every time on time. It's really been your outside architect that has not or didn't submit the right paper. Do we lose a document once in a while? Do we misplace a file? Sure, that can happen in any organization. But we are fully transparent what the turnaround times are. And in my experience, most of the problems I have, at least with businesses, are the translation of regulations into what they're being asked to do. It's like, why am I being asked to do this by the city? That to me tends to be the biggest thing we have to address, not turnaround times.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Any other commissioners have questions?
This Commissioner Lengyel, if I could ask a quick question.
Oh, Michael.
Go ahead.
Show yourself.
And Eric Amarana, thanks for a great presentation, very informative. I was excited to hear all the development on 3rd Avenue. Could you elaborate maybe the mix between housing and non-housing, and on the non-housing and the business side, what those new businesses look like?
Sure. I mean, let me start with housing. So I'm very happy because, as any downtown district needs density and people. So with the completion of Urbana, that's going to be fantastic. 160 units, the lease up rate's going really well. We have another 45 unit project on the corner of Center and Church that's about ready to be completed. We have Silvergate development that's about ready to break ground on a 30 unit project behind 221 3rd Avenue. And they're also in process of another 32 unit project on the corner of Davidson and Church. So that's another 30, there's another 100 plus stores within 3 blocks. The owner who just completed Urbana just closed on the property surrounding the Kentucky Fried Chicken on 3rd and Alvarado, and they want to do about 220, I think it's between 200 to 220 residential units. And so, if you think about, we're in average, we're about, 3 people per door. I mean, that can bring another, 1,400 people down to 3rd Avenue that are living and playing there. So I'm really happy to see the residential infill development that's happening. As it relates to Miranda's point, we continue to see a huge interest in location in downtown Chula Vista, with 25 new businesses that have opened up in the last probably 36 months. I mean, really say that really started taking off in 2017. The mix of those being restaurants and breweries. We have more restaurants coming house. We have a Korean noodle house restaurant coming in. Miranda talked about El Cruce at 241. Which is going to be a Baja style taco Mexican food restaurant. But what's cool about that, they're really trying to bring the Baja craft brew industry to this side of the border, which is going to be fantastic. So we can start to sample some of the amazing offerings they have, south of the border. We have Farmers Table, who continues to move forward on their tenant improvements for Marie Callender's. We have a restaurant that's interested in the former Fuddruckers building. I got a new gym that's going into 24-hour fitness. So the energy is still there. The businesses are still coming. The old Leader building, you'll see after this weekend, we'll probably cut a few holes into the building. That's going to be subdivided into 2,000 square foot retail spaces. And we're active discussions with other restaurants and retailers. So, I mean, they're all struggling right now, but there's still a lot of energy to coming to Third Avenue. So hopefully that wasn't too fast, but that's in a nutshell what's happening in those 4 or 5 blocks.
No, appreciate it. That's exciting to see. Sorry, my camera's so dark, but appreciate it. That's exciting to hear.
Wow, you're like a spy. I'd say it was good to see you, Michael. It's been a long time, but I'm really happy to see you participating in the city still.
Okay, any other commissioners have comments or questions?
Chairman Hooker, if I could just chime in and add to what Eric said, one of the things that our group did in facilities financing, he mentioned the Urbana project. They came to us and said, hey, we can't lease this up as quickly as we thought because of COVID. Can you further defer some more fees? So that's one of the first things I worked on when I got here was a deferral agreement with Urbana. So we're trying to be really responsive to all the business owners in terms of how we can help them financially. And sometimes just delaying the fees helps their cash flow quite a bit.
Yeah, and I really appreciate Chair inviting us. Thank you, commissioners, for hearing from us. We have no ego in what we put out, and we're always open to suggestions and input. And Commissioner Torres will get you that information, both on the Harvard study and the work that came out of that, as well as our work plans. There's nothing better than to be inclusive and hear from everybody, because it only makes our work better and more effective for our business community. So I want to thank you for allowing us to be here today.
Thank you very much. We're very informative. I will now call for a 2-minute pause to allow for public comments for any final comments before the commission deliberates. As a reminder, please refresh your screen to ensure new comments appear. Okay, the comment period is now closed. I did not see any comments. Can you confirm?
I did not receive any via email either.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is presentation of blank questionnaires for FY 2020 GMOC abbreviated annual report. Kim, all yours.
Questionnaires, I'd just like to go over schedule. And Claudia, if you have a copy of the calendar for the rest of the year, we'll just walk through that a moment. So as you can see, we've already finished the month of August, and this is our second meeting in September, where we're covering topics related to our comprehensive review and going over the questionnaires this evening. In October, the very first Thursday of the month, October 1st, the Attorney's Office has scheduled an ethics training. Some of you have attended that in the past in City Council chambers, and now you'll be able to do it through the WebEx. And so we're encouraging all of you to attend that, especially if your training is about to expire. So that'll be a good opportunity for you on the 1st, starting at 5:00 p.m. And then we're proposing to have 2 GMOC meetings on the 15th and on the 29th. So the 29th is the 5th Thursday of the month. Normally we wouldn't have a GMOC meeting that night. Normally we go the 1st and the 3rd. But because of this special training in October, we're proposing to have the schedule. Hopefully that will work out for you. If not, let us know. And then in November, we're going to go over some of the responses to the questionnaires, and there'll be a presentation regarding the comprehensive review, but at this time we're still narrowing down what the topic will be. And then in December, we'll finalize the annual report and take it to council in January. And then in 2021, we'll continue with the comprehensive review and update the calendar accordingly. Are there any questions on this calendar so far? Okay, if not, then I'd also like to ask if you would consider having the meetings earlier, say 5:00 or 5:30 p.m. I know in the past when we were meeting in person, travel time from work to the city, just to the city was, always an issue. But now that many of us are working remotely, that may not be as much of an issue. Can I get some feedback on that? Does that sound like a possibility?
For me, yeah, that would work. I mean, I live by my calendar, so as long as it's on my calendar, that works.
This is Commissioner Strong. I'm perfectly fine with that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lengel's.
All right. Yeah. So 5:00.
Kim, what time were you thinking?
Please go ahead. Yes. Does 5 sound reasonable?
That works for me.
This is Torres. That works for me as well.
Yeah, yeah, that seems fine. So this will be while we're under COVID watch, let's call it. I mean, then we'll go back to.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, we can revisit if we go back to meeting in the conference rooms. Okay.
Yeah.
So then Kim and I will work on updating that schedule then to use that new time frame. Okay, so back to the questionnaires. Now, each of you received the questionnaires in your packets sent by Claudia earlier this week. Hopefully you've all had a chance to review them. The plan is not to go over every single one of them, page by page, question by question, but to see generally if you had any questions or comments on any particular questionnaires or topics.
Now, Kim, so remind me, I forgot, the plan was just to use the questionnaires basically as we've used in the past and get abbreviated answers for this report, right?
Yes, thank you for
Okay.
bringing that up. The questionnaires do not have as many questions as we've had in the past. Essentially, our focus this review period is to stick to compliance of the threshold standards, and get the information so that we can make that determination whether or not the topics are in or out of compliance. Because we want to focus on the comprehensive review.
One question that I would ask is, could we have what's been the COVID impact on each one of them, if any?
Okay. We did talk about that as a possibility, and Kim, feel free to chime in. We're thinking that it is for fiscal year 2020, and there was probably maybe 2 to 2.5 months of that time was COVID. But we decided against it. We thought that it wasn't significant enough to have an impact on the outcome of these threshold standards. So, Kim, would you like to chime in on that, or?
Yeah, I initially had thought that would be a good idea, and I'm not opposed to it. As we got talking to management, they said, well, is that really growth related? But if that's something you want to see, we can ask.
The only reason I bring it up is because, depending on the day that you start, they have 2 to 3 months, and the transition, they went from non-COVID to COVID.
Yeah.
Was there really any impact to their services or their operating procedures, and their, what did it mean for, police? Did they have any extra expense for having masks and gloves and that kind of stuff? Same type of thing for fire. And, maybe some of the other ones isn't that bad. The schools, the schools with going to distant learning, what impact did they have there? So, I mean, I just think that there's some impact, and like it could be minor that, they just had, X amount of dollars of impact for, PPE or whatever it was, I'd just be interested in that kind of stuff.
Okay, we'll add it back in.
This is Commissioner Strong. That actually might come up during their presentations, Chair Hooker, now that I think about it. But we may be able to just note to make questions have those questions during the presentations as well.
Right. And I agree. I mean, I think as long as they would be prepared to answer that kind of stuff, because I don't think everybody would have it, but I think some people would.
And this is Kim Vanderbeek. Just as a reminder, we're not planning to have all of the department heads come in and give presentations this time. It's going to be a little different than we've done it in the past because it is abbreviated. Yeah.
So this would be really a paper review of the questionnaires then.
And then staff could highlight those particular issues. I think would be fine when Kim presents all the summary of thresholds, and in the draft report we could discuss that as well.
Right. Okay. I mean, unless any other commissioners object or have any other strong comments on it.
Well, this is Commissioner Torres. I want to make sure we know what you. So, and Eric brought up about how the Economic Development Department was using that money Wouldn't that be a better discussion to have under finance, when finance is brought to us, and having those types of questions included in the questionnaire about how the CARES Funding Act, how those money are being expended by the city as a whole?
I agree with that for the finance section, but I would assume that every department would have some type of impact.
Okay, sounds good. I have a question for Kim and Kimberly, is that, so today, we're not gonna go through each of the questionnaires, so is staff telling us that basically the questionnaires are fixed, that we're not going to entertain any possible changes to the questionnaire, or what's the discussion?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm asking for this evening. Hopefully you had an opportunity to review the questionnaires that were emailed to you and see if you had any feedback on what you read.
Okay, well, then if I may, I just opine is that the CARES Act funding definitely in finance. I think that there should be a question about that. How much has the city received? How have those monies being expended? And should be one. Relative to the questions is on parks, is that, as you know, Kim, when I first came on board, is that the question that's asked in parks has a focus on East Chula Vista. And I'd like to have either that question include East and West Chula Vista or citywide. Because again, I think—
I'm sorry, what topic was that?
That was in parks. Question number 1.
Oh,
It
yeah,
talks
although
about East Chula
Commissioner
Vista.
Torres,
Yeah,
yes, the threshold standard is specifically for Eastern Chula Vista, and that's why it does. However, the Parks and Recreation Department has done a great job of incorporating onto the table, showing the status of parks in Western Chula Vista and Eastern Chula Vista. So we do get that, we do get a good picture, and they just updated their Parks and Rec master plan a couple years ago, and you know, it addresses shortcomings and future parks in Western Chula Vista also.
right. I'm aware of the threshold for it, but I'm talking about the question itself. So if we can't change that question to also include West Chula Vista, or rephrase the question to include West, East, and West, or citywide, then as part of the presentation, then at least have the parks discuss what's happening in West Chula Vista then. Okay?
I think one of the great things about this comprehensive review is that we'll be able to address this issue, you know, for future reports, you know, more completely than maybe we will be able to this year. But it's definitely an issue that we realize does need to be dealt with. So we'll do what we can this year with that.
Okay, I'm with you. Thank you.
Any other commissioner have comments?
Before we move forward, Chair Hooker, I do want to take a vote on changing the time. So if I could just do a real quick roll call vote on changing the time of the meeting to start at 5 p.m. So Chair Hooker, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alatorre? Okay, he's still silent. Okay, we'll check back with him. Commissioner Caudillo?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Juarez?
Yes.
Commissioner Lengyel?
Yes.
And Commissioner Strong?
Yes.
And Commissioner Torres?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody have any other questions on
Thank you.
item number 3? Okay, so at this time, I'll call for a 2-minute pause to allow for public comment on any final comments before the agenda. Commissioners, reminder to refresh your screen for new comments.
And just as a note, commissioners, I have posted the link to the e-comments in the chat, so you can click on that link to view any e-comments that are uploaded by the public.
Okay, the commenting period for this action item is now closed. I did not see any comments.
I did not receive any comments via email.
Okay, so Claudia, just to clarify, do we need to have any pause, 2-minute pause for the vote for changing the time?
You know, I'm not exactly sure. I do know that I did receive an email from Commissioner Caudillo, who said that that time does not work for him. And I told him I would mention that he's having problems with his mic, but just wanted to mention that.
No, that wasn't me.
Oh, Alatorre, sorry, Alatorre.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank you for correcting me. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Alatorre.
Okay, so if we got one commissioner that can't make that time, how do we handle that?
Kim or Kimberly?
Well, if I could just jump in a moment, please. Yes. So Secretary Salvacion brought it to our attention that I believe we may need to have a resolution to officially change the time. So perhaps we will keep it at 6 o'clock, at least for the next couple of meetings, until we can get a resolution prepared and approved. Does that sound reasonable?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So for the time being, then we'll keep it at 6 p.m. with the intention of changing it to 5.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So
Great. Thank you so much.
The next item on the agenda is presentation of the comprehensive review. Kimberly Elliott, all yours.
Thank you, Chairman Hooker. Claudia, if you could post those 2 slides or start with the first one, please. Thank you. Maybe you could make it full screen. There you go. Thanks, Claudia. So this is kind of our working document of changing from the old growth management topics to the new quality of life topics. And Commissioner Torres, you asked a good question. How are we going to come up with the thresholds? And our plan is to bring these experts in to talk to you, get your thoughts and ideas on what you think we should focus on, and then go back and work with staff and come back to you, work with the staff in these individual areas, then come back to you with some suggested metrics. And from there, we can write the ordinance. and go through that process. So I just wanted to update you with a couple things to reflect some of the comments that you had last meeting. On public safety, I added emergency preparedness to that topic. Let's see, to transportation and land use, I added safe streets. And I've been working with staff to try and get on the agenda at the Safety Commission meeting. I think they meet the first Wednesday of the month, to talk about engaging them into the types of things we should be looking at from a safety standpoint. Connected communities, I removed open space and civic engagement. As I got to thinking about it, didn't think those were, it seems like more active parks and recreation, it would be more meaningful than just the open space, which is, provided by requirements. And the city already has a really good program in place with their MSCP multi-species conservation program and the whole Old Town Ranch Preserve. So I think open space is covered well. Next slide. So as you recall, I had a topic called resiliency that had a couple things underneath it. One was economic development. I decided that economic development, and just reflecting back, remembering some of your comments, that's important enough to be a topic in and of itself. So I'll meet with Eric and Miranda, spend some more time with them on what types of things would be important to measure. And certainly business expansion and retention is something they really work hard on, is growing and retaining businesses in Chula Vista. Then there's lots of things under employment, job creation, unemployment rates. And then last meeting, we talked about, what about all this housing that we are needing in the city, and how are we going to continue to provide the public services? So public facilities, I'm sorry. And you said that measuring the DIF, the development impact fees, how much is being collected, how much is being spent, would be something that would be important to look at. So I was thinking that under economic development, we could have that topic, and we could look at what facilities are being built with this money, and how much is being collected on an annual basis, because we do track that. And sustainability, again, I haven't changed anything on this, and we will have someone from Eric's group in charge of the conservation area come talk to you about the climate action plan and all the things they're doing under that. You got a brief overview from Miranda tonight. Health and wellness, I didn't change anything under here. We are going to have the staff representative to the Healthy Chula Vista Commission come to one of our meetings, I think mid-month. And then I added, I showed our new city manager what we were doing here, just to get her up to speed. And I used to have innovation as a topic under resiliency, but she wanted to see the smart city topic as its own, since we are focusing a lot on that. And I've invited the director of this group that heads up the smart city and innovation, and they're doing all kinds of work on transparency. We're calling it the open data program. A lot with technology. I called it connected city here. Miranda showed you that we provided all these Wi-Fi hotspots. So there's a lot going on with trying to help the digital divide where only certain people have access to the internet and a lot don't. So there's a lot underneath it that I thought be worthy of having its own topic, and certainly something that's indicative of a good quality of life is to be leveraging technology in a meaningful way in a city. So I just wanted to get your feedback on those changes and topics and any other ideas you might have.
So at what point can we discuss, I mean, like, for example, economic development? I mean, there's so many variables and elements of that. I mean, there's way more than just 3. So at what point are we going to, I mean, is this something that we need to vote on? Or, I mean, if we, or at what point are we going to be able to have a discussion on that? Is that the time tonight, or that's what I'm a little bit confused on?
Sure. These are just ideas of areas that we could look to measure. I don't mean that we'll do only these things. We will bring these back to you probably closer to the end of the year after we've heard from all of the department heads and subject matter experts. So what I'd like to do is bring back, sets of metrics, and then we can have a thorough discussion on each one. Are these things you want to measure? And I will have fleshed that all out with staff that will be doing the measuring. Is this something that is meaningful and trackable?
So Kimberly, I guess I'm assuming this is an outline of your topics, and then this would be written into the code
Exactly.
to replace the current code.
Correct. This is just an outline.
Right. So I guess to answer Commissioner Toledo's question, which goes along with mine, I guess when would we see that draft new municipal code to be able to review it, digest it, and see how it's worded and stuff? Like the comments about, that Commissioner Torres said about the parks and east and west, to try to gather that kind of information and make sure we're on the same page.
Probably not till after the first year for a full code. As I just said, I'd like to, if we can, start bringing back the lists of metrics toward the end of this year. So we're already, mid-September, and we need to meet with all the departments and then come back to you. So I'm thinking toward the end of the year for a list, and then after the first of the year, we'll have to really draft the ordinance itself.
So you'd have the metrics that would go in the ordinance, but that draft and that type of language ready, within a couple of months, so we can, have something to throw darts at, and then from that write the code.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm thinking maybe December we have the list of metrics, and then after the first of the year we start writing the code.
Okay. So with that being said, in the schedule that Kim presented, I guess I see a time crunch there where I didn't see time to do both, to do the questionnaire or to do the yearly report for 2020 and to do this stuff in the same time period.
It is going to be difficult. That's why we're doing the abbreviated questions, so we can focus more on this comprehensive review. And that's why we're suggesting that we don't bring back every department head to present their questionnaire to you. We'd like staff just to present those to you. So that's the way we're trying to shorten it.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. I think I had kind of missed that from earlier, but okay, now I'm it's making sense to me now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Kim can be drafting the report as she's always done, and I can be more focused on this comprehensive review. So there's two of us now instead of just Kim. So hopefully we can get more.
Right. And maybe something where we could, since we got a 2-hour period, take the first hour for the report and the second hour for the review.
Yes.
Try to make the agenda fit that.
Sure. Now there'll be some time period there where, the questionnaires are out and we don't have anything to discuss about the current report, but.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess, does that kind of make sense for my fellow commissioners there?
Works for me. I'd like to ask a question after everybody talks.
And we can send the schedule out as well, so you have it, the one that Kim presented.
Right. Because to me, I mean, the 2020 report is going to be what it is. I mean, nothing's really going to change. That's kind of boilerplate stuff. I'm more interested in what's the future stuff and the new code and the new questionnaires and stuff like that.
Right.
At least that's my opinion. If anybody else has an opinion on there. Okay, so if there's no other questions by commissioners, I'll go ahead and call for a 2-minute pause to allow for public comment. Or Commissioner Torres, do you have something?
Yeah, I did actually. I play with this unmute button. Is the way Kimberly explained it. First, let me say I do support what you said, Commissioner Hooker, about bifurcating our subsequent meetings because the current GMOC ordinance is pretty much fixed. So bifurcating the meetings so we can do the comprehensive review. But I also want to inform the commission, that it was in the meeting, in our minutes rather, that staff needs to go to the various other commissions for input, to the Housing Commission for the new housing threshold, Measure A, for police. And so there's gonna be some work that needs to be done, but I'm like Commissioner Cadillo with regard to economic development. And because again, I'm just not here as a GMOC rep, I'm here as a planning commission rep as well. And so again, I just want to reiterate my point that we get a copy of the presentation by Ms. Evans, because there was so much meat on those bones that we need to digest that to better inform us, to have that type of dialogue with staff relative to the thresholds and the performance metrics, and then also that survey result, because again, that is so informative. And I'm going to ask that staff, Kimberly and Kim, work with Patricia in making sure that those two documents are included in the Planning Commission agenda packets. So when economic development comes to the Planning Commission for their input, they'll also be given the benefit of those two documents to educate them on what to ask. So than that, I think what Kimberly put together, it sounds pretty sound.
So
Okay.
If I could ask Commissioner Torres, are you meaning the Planning Commission that we go to where we get their input
Yeah, because
on these topics?
no, not the joint meeting. Okay.
I know.
Yeah, because remember, in our previous meetings, you guys are going to come to the Planning Commission, and that's
Right.
where Commissioner Cadillo kind of, got his was a little bit alarmed. Remember, you're going to be coming to the Planning Commission itself to get its input about economic development. Right?
Well, not just, excuse me, Commissioner, but not just economic development, every topic. So I know you're focused on that one, but
You mean for the whole
yes,
overview?
Yes, that's what we told the Plan Commission at that, in the January joint meeting. They said, we want you to come early to us for our input.
Right. I think you misheard what they were asking.
Okay.
What they were asking, they don't want to opine on the whole comprehensive overview. What their interest, and we can go back to the minutes of those meetings or the audio tapes to rehear that. What the Planning Commission wanted was to have an opportunity to opine on the economic development new thresholds and the performance metrics or whatever. So if you guys are still formulating what those thresholds are and the performance metrics, then that's why I'm saying that the presentation that was given by Ms. Evans, that be included in the agenda packet, as well as the survey that was recently done. That's what the Planning Commission is focused on. They're not, they're not, that's why I'm here. I'm here as the Planning Commission rep to opine on the GMOC ordinance, okay, as a rep of the Planning Commission. But the Planning Commission itself, as an entity, their preoccupation is economic development. That's what they're focused on. Now, that's what they were talking about last January, because you could counsel, and I would encourage you to about that, about how before you came on board, the Planning Commission was having its own internal deliberations. How does it opine on economic development? How does it advocate that threshold in the ordinance? Then at the joint meeting, that's when we talk that commission.
Okay, I will definitely re-listen to the joint meeting. That's, yeah, not the way I understood it, but I'll definitely want to clarify that, so.
Yeah, please.
And, as you're mentioning, Commissioner Torres, we are committed to going to those other commissions, so this may take a lot longer than I'm thinking.
Exactly.
I'm going to be a little bit aggressive here.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable. Yeah, it's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I could just add also, the growth management ordinance does require us to go through the Planning Commission when we do the annual report. Therefore, I think it is relevant for the Planning Commission to look at the comprehensive review as a whole, not just the economic development portion, which may be a hot topic for them, something that they're very concerned about. But I think that they should also be given the opportunity to look at the other topics that are being discussed.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that they're not, but again, the way the process works before is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, is that I don't recall in the time that I've been on the Planning Commission where the whole GMOC came to the Planning Commission first before the joint meeting with the GMOC and the City Council. I don't recall that happening. Rather, what has been happening is that the GMOC, the annual report, comes to the Planning Commission at the same time as presented by the GMOC and the City Council.
Yes,
Okay.
that's for the annual report. But for the comprehensive review, I think we're looking at the Planning Commission as one of the stakeholders and want to get their input specifically on potential changes to the ordinance.
Okay, I'm with you now. Okay, I got it. Okay.
I have a question. This is Rodney.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've mentioned this a couple times. So to piggyback on what Commissioner Torres was just saying, what about, and I'm not saying there is anything, but what about, let's say, for like public safety? Are we going to be going at all to the safety commission, I mean, we have a safety commission that a lot of people don't even realize of what they do. It's more traffic related. I was on there, like I mentioned, a few times. So, I mean, because there's some stuff that crosses over and we're not communicating. So is there some thought on that? Also?
Yes, I mentioned that I talked to the staff person that's liaison to the safety commission, and yes, I do plan on going to the commission and engaging the staff and tell them what we're doing and learn what they're working on. I added safe streets as one of the things to look at under transportation and land use.
And most importantly too, I remember being on the commission, we had many times the same problem that just kept coming up within the city, and we had to fix it. And we did, but maybe that's another thing too, to see if there's any trends, good or bad, that they want to share with us, so we know.
Okay, I'll ask that.
Good trends, we want to do more of that. If they're bad trends, we want to try to stop it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and call for 2-minute public comments. Okay, that closes the period for comments. I did not see any comments.
I did not receive any comments via email.
Okay, we'll go to next action item number 5. Kim?
Yes, Mr. Chair. At our last meeting, Commissioner Alatorre indicated that he would no longer be part of the Measure A Citizens Oversight Commission or Committee, and therefore this evening we would ask that you nominate someone else to replace him. According to the city clerk, you can nominate up to 3 individuals for this position. When the committee was first formed, the nominees were interviewed by the city council, but at this time, the nominees will be interviewed just by Mayor Casillas Salas. So if we could get those nominations tonight, we will forward those to the city clerk, and then they will set up interviews with the mayor.
Okay, So I guess my first question before we nominate, do we have any volunteers? Anybody interested?
Days do they meet? Does it, so everybody knows?
I believe they meet quarterly, 4 times a year.
4 times a year, okay. And it doesn't flick, our days? That,
I think you asked when they meet.
no, but, well, Kim said or every quarter, but what day of the week do they?
Yeah, I don't think I don't believe it interferes with our meetings, but I can research that a moment if you just give me a moment here.
I guess what's the scope of the participation and what day? Sounds like we got a delay here.
I think it's some, if you could mute if you're not speaking, that's what creates that feedback. Commissioner Kadi, there you go. Commissioner Kadi, there you go. Kim, so what I hear Chairman Hooker asking, what's the responsibility of the role?
Yes, I'm pulling that up. Just one moment, please. Okay, so the Measure A Citizens Oversight Committee was created to review and report on all Measure A proposed expenditure plans, financial reports, and audits. Measure A is the half-cent sales tax measure to fund public safety staffing and services that was passed by Chula Vista voters on June 5th. It doesn't say which year, I think it was 2 years ago. The new tax will allow the Chula Vista Fire and Police Departments to hire additional police officers and firefighters to provide faster responses to 911 emergency calls, increase neighborhood police patrols, including gang and drug-related crimes, address homelessness, and improve firefighter, paramedic, and emergency medical response times.
Okay. So I guess ask again, do we have any volunteers?
They do meet the second, it says that they meet the second Thursday of every month. So it's more than quarterly.
Monthly then, right?
Yes. I believe that Measure P is the one that measures quarterly. Is that correct, Commissioner Lingell?
That's correct. We meet quarterly, and I'll mention we typically meet the third Tuesday of every quarter, which can be a conflict. And I'll certainly open up to the floor. You know, I obviously do that, Chair, but I'm open if someone's interested in taking that position. I don't mind rolling off as well. I realize we may have to add that to next month's agenda, but I'll just throw that out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm not hearing anybody volunteer. So what do we do with this if we have no volunteers
Nominations?
or no nominations?
I think there just wouldn't be a GMOC rep on that commission. Is that right, Kim?
It's required.
Yeah, the ordinance does require a GMOC rep. Yeah,
Overextending myself once again, but I'm happy to volunteer.
Okay, nominate Commissioner
you.
Strong to be our nominee.
I'll second.
all right. Sorry.
Okay, do we need to take a vote on that, or is that good enough?
I think you should vote.
Okay, Claudia, can you do a roll call?
Sure. Sure. Commissioner Hooker, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alatorre? We can hear him, okay. Commissioner Caudillo?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Juarez?
Yes.
Commissioner Laniel?
Yes.
Commissioner Torres?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 5 votes for yes.
Okay. Okay, so that passes. So I'll move. Item number 6, chair comments. Since we got an echo, I have no comments. Commissioners?
Are these just any regular comment at this time?
Yes.
Okay, so Ms. Ellie, have we made any headway on those questions that I asked? That I think the city attorney was working. Have we made any headway on that?
I think I'll, Mike, I'll have to have the city attorney respond. I think last week he said it. He didn't really have a time frame. But I will check in again.
Okay. All right. You're when you talk, saying it 3 times. I don't know, just a bad connection, maybe.
Okay, if no other
I
commissioners.
apologize. I didn't hear the portion.
I guess, city staff, do you have any comments?
I do not have comments. Kim, do you have anything to add?
Commissioner Cadillo, I'm not sure I heard the last part you said there about your question.
No, I was just asking if we had made any headway.
And I will get back with Mr. Shirey.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that said, I adjourn the regular meeting, and our next meeting will be on October 1st, 2020 at 6 p.m.
No. Chairman Hooker, just a reminder. Kim, please mute. And Commissioner Cadillo, if you could mute as well. We've got too many. There you go. Just a reminder, I'm sorry, Chairman Hooker, but the first is the ethics training. So we have to cancel the meeting on the 1st. As Kim said in her schedule.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I was just reading off the script here. So.
Oops. Okay. So we apologize. That should have been corrected. The next meeting will be the 15th.
Okay. 15th and ethics training on the 1st.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Everybody.
Thank you.